Hi everyone, it's Kyra Wong, and I'm here today with my next leading lady, Sharon Davis. And we're going to talk about some magical things. Actually, we're going to talk about some serious things too, such as racism, which is very top of mind nowadays with everything that's going on, especially in 2020. It's been quite the year. So let's get started, Sharon.
Okay, let's do it.
So tell me about how your parents first immigrated to Canada, or how your family first came to Canada.
Well, it kind of goes back to the early 1900s. All my grandparents came to Canada before they were teenagers that I'm aware of. Even my mother's mother came to Canada in 1913 when she was just 3 years old. A couple brought her to Canada and they paid a $500 head tax to bring her into the country.
Wow.
Think about how much money that is today.
That's probably enough to buy a house back then.
I think so.
Yeah.
And they built roots here. My dad's family hunkered down into Vancouver proper, and him and all his siblings lived in Vancouver proper. And my mom, my grandma on that side, she moved to Trail, and she became a second wife to a man from China. So I have cousins from both sides of the waters. And they were restaurateurs in Trail and really put roots down. They were the first Chinese family. Yeah, there's deep roots in Trail.
So your dad was a very traditional Chinese person. So I'm thinking that would include maybe not being super affectionate or not being a super communicator.
Strangely enough, yes, he was more traditional than almost all of his other brothers and sisters, and he's number 6.
Oh, okay.
So, and traditional in the sense of, boys are the best, girls should stay home and have a place at home and to, get good grades and play the piano and join the chess club and all those things,
Yeah.
which didn't really happen for me. There was no PDAs at all. And even to the point where, like simply hugging and kissing and things like that we do with our friends today,
Yeah.
not during COVID, but
Yeah.
on a regular basis, if you're that type of person, that wasn't really something that was happening at my house.
So you very much identified as white. You didn't speak Chinese at home. You had all white friends. You just had this white identity as a result of the way you were raised. And I suppose because your parents were also born in Vancouver and not speaking Chinese to you.
You know what? All my best friends growing up were Caucasian, and the other best friends I had were my cousins. I had cousins that, like a whole slew of them. There's actually, I think, 21 of us that graduated from the same high school.
And then you had a family tragedy when you were 15 years old. How did you learn to believe in yourself?
So since the time I was about 12, my mom had been sick, so I just became the chief cook and bottle washer at my house. And people often would say to me, like, "Oh my gosh, what a tragedy! How did you deal with that?" But I think it's the same with anybody that has unfortunate circumstances that happen to them. It's not that anybody has a book about what to do when this happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's fight or flight, right? So
Yeah.
you can choose to be a survivor, or you can choose to be a victim. I think at some point in time when you look around and you realize, what, the possibilities truly are endless, right? I'm smarter than that. I think I'm better than that. I should be better than that. I don't, and probably I don't want to do that, right? So whatever that was, it's, and even today, like, what is that? Like, there's always that is in the back of your mind, right? So, I think just the idea to be different and to be better and to be who I want it to be,
Yeah.
which is a very hard process, and at points in times all the way along, you really need to check in with yourself and redefine what is it that I want to be, or who do I want to be? Because am I this way because I'm this way for somebody else? But does that make me happy? Knowing though that the road to get to the other side is not always the easiest path.
You told me that you disassociated yourself from your dad when we talked. Were there cultural messages that were coming to you from your father, or like culturally Asian messages that boys are better than girls?
Yes, and I think it's the old school method of the old school Chinese thinking about, if you won't do what I want you to do, I'm going to try and make you do that, or I'm going to stop you from doing other things, versus just saying, you know what, why don't you try that? Because what I was trying wasn't necessarily what his ideas or his goals were potentially for me, or what he thought I should be doing.
Right, Right. But you're a strong enough person just to, I call it defiance DNA. Defiance DNA. You're like, no, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. And I'm going to go in my own way, right? And you even did that when you got married. You end up marrying somebody who was white, right? How
That
did
is
that
true.
go?
Well, well, yes, at that time, so Tony, he's a broker in the industry. He asked my dad for my hand in marriage and the permission to marry me, and he said he'd think about it.
Uh-huh.
And then we ended up getting married anyways. Actually, my dad called me on the morning of my wedding and said, "Okay, you can pick me up." So that was
Oh.
a sort of his little, okay, I guess you can get married. But to the day that he passed away, and after, even after I got divorced, he never did say yes. Well, and again, we just did it anyways, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, you did your own thing.
don't accept bullying, even if it's from your parents. And it sounds like a strange thing to say, but it really does happen. Parents try and mold their children into something, or their ultimate desire for them, or something they missed in their life. But that doesn't mean that's my place or my path that where I was going to go. And in my case, that's part of, was part of my thing. I just didn't want to be, or didn't want to have to do all the things that my parents would have liked. More specifically, my dad, because my mom wasn't around at that time.
And you felt bullied by him.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He tried to manipulate and drive a path for me a certain way, which was not going to be part of my path. And so I think making those choices early on made things a little bit harder and longer, and but at the end, much more rewarding for where it came from and how I got there. People don't think that parental bullying is bullying. They think they're just imparting their views and you should be taking them very seriously and following what they want. But you know what? At some point in time, when your mind is more developed and your soul is getting more developed and you have a path for where you would like to go, which doesn't match up with what they want, you know what? I have to live with me forever. I don't have to live with them forever. I did put myself through school. So actually, when I graduated from school, I did get a scholarship to UBC, and I decided that I was kind of tired of being super adulting while I was actually still a teenager and in school. So I decided I wasn't going to university right away. I was going to go out and work and do those things. And at that moment, that was my cutoff moment. So I then had worked a couple jobs, 2 full-time jobs, to save up enough money to go back to school. I had to pay rent. To live at home even while I was going to school. And you know what? Here I am.
Have you experienced any racism towards your children, having children of, halfers, as we call them? Halfers.
You have heifers too.
I have heifers too. Heifers are so cute. Just so cute. Anyways, has that been something they've had to deal with as a result of having, a white parent and an Asian parent?
You know what? I don't think so. Not my kids. At that point in time, I think, they're definitely of the generation where everybody's mixed, right? Canada is the best melting pot of all sorts of humans that get together, whether they're different races or ethnicities or same or different genders or whatever the case may be. And everybody is accepted here, right?
Yeah.
More or less, right? There's challenges that every couple or grouping or family or whatever may have to go through. You know what? I think that's what makes us who we are today, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, my kids, I call them halfers, and they call themselves halfers.
Yeah.
And they, it's good. A lot of my cousins married Caucasian people, so they're all blends, right?
What's a limited belief you've struggled with?
Oh, I'd have to say, and it's one of those old things, but boys are better than girls. And you know what? I think that...
That was culturally. Culturally, you were taught that.
Culturally, but, on the playgrounds when kids were little, and you play games, and you play, boys were stronger. But, you know what? Then I think that girls can do just about anything that boys can do. And sometimes we can do that better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I do think that, especially in the Asian culture, that boys were more heavily
favored.
Definitely favored, and they were definitely the favorite child because they'd carry on the family name, as that was the thinking. And I know that Chinese isn't the only ethnicity that is like that, and I think it's unfortunate. But that was kind of back in those days, and I think when I was coming of age and becoming a little bit older, we decided, you know what, we're going to buck the trend because things don't always have to stay status quo.
And you do have a brother, so you could feel that difference.
I do
right?
have a brother, yes, the chosen one. If you are on the uptick or you're getting all the privileges, you're on the privileged side and you don't realize what it's like for the other people because you're wearing the rose-colored glasses versus the other people who have got the big Coke bottle glasses on, which, distorts the view a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And there is differences, and as time has marched on, and him and I have had these discussions about what it was like when we grew up in the same house, he does say now, "Oh, I guess it really was different." But again, if it's not happening to you, it's not really of your concern, or it's not on your radar. And it's not to say that I don't have a good relationship with my brother, right?
No,
But
for sure.
just sort of moving forward, and now that we're adults and we
Yeah.
both have children of our own, and we both have or had been married, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you sort of look at things in a different light,
Yeah, exactly.
or have the ability to look out from the outside in.
Yeah, exactly. What's a piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Be kinder to yourself earlier.
That's a good one. Ooh, that's
Yes,
so good.
because
So good.
you count
Yeah, I feel that's making you emotional.
a little bit.
I know.
I think because we
Sadly.
always think that we have to be the be all end all. We're the fall guy, fall girl, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So at first up, trying to get everything ready. In the meantime, try and be successful and have a career and do all those things. Oh, but don't forget to pick up the kids from school, right?
Yeah.
And then, oh my gosh, when we have to go to hockey, we have to do this. Oh, they need to eat something. Right? Like, why
I
do they have
know.
to eat all the time?
It's true.
And then, there's laundry and there's all those things. And, having a supportive partner is a huge part of it, right?
Absolutely.
But, at the end of the day, if the things need to get done, they need to get done. And as women, I sometimes think that we feel that it's our job to do those things. I've just discovered that it's not wrong to sometimes think of myself first.
Yeah, and that's why the unicorn has one horn, is because they know the importance of putting themselves first.
Aha!
Aha!
And it has a little sparkle. So
Exactly. How has the global pandemic changed you?
you know what? It's quite funny because people always say to me, "Oh my God, you're so busy. You're doing this. You're doing that. You're doing." But it's because they're like, "Oh, I see your posts and whatnot." Well, you post about the things that you do, but nobody posts, "Hey, here I am sitting at home, just having a cup of tea," right?
Yeah.
Or just lounging around in my housecoat watching
Yeah.
a movie or whatnot. So I think it's really given people the permission to be home and to be with those they care about,
Yeah.
to keep their bubbles small,
Yeah.
right? And to, I think, further enjoy those people in their bubbles,
Yeah.
and realize that a lot of what happens outside of that, all the busyness and all the noise and whatnot, is really not as important as you think it is.
Yeah, that's
right?
so true.
So I think it's really helped not just me but others to reset their personal priorities.
Yeah.
And to look at how they spend their time and who they spend their time with,
Yeah.
and why you spend that time with them.
How have you overcome the adversity you've experienced in your life?
That's an interesting question too. I think it's one of those things where people ask, it's the same thing as like, "Oh my gosh, that was such an awful thing that happened to you. How did you deal with that?" I think you just do, right? And the more you deal with this little thing and, oh, it was a little bit hard, but at the end of the day, it was so much better. Or to have that lighter spirit inside, right? Instead of the I can't, or I shouldn't. Well, what if I just tried? Like, what would happen, right?
Yeah.
What would happen if I did it?
Yeah.
And just to know that making strides in your own personal life, yeah, they come with consequences. Yeah, some of it's unpleasant and some of it's really hard. But at the end of the day, if where you are, what's happening to you isn't what you want it to be, then the only person that can help you get to the next place is yourself.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
And I'm not a very good person for asking for help. I'm not very good at asking for help. But I have become much better at saying no.
Good for you.
Yes. And saying no leaves more time for me for yes.
You are Asian, female, and petite. And you're also really super funny. And I'm wondering if humor is something that you developed to potentially become more visible in life.
Well, I think potentially visible, but potentially to be a little bit invisible too.
Okay.
So I think humor is an easy deflection, right? I mean, everybody appreciates humor. Everybody likes humor.
Yeah.
Humor makes things lighter and softer and funner,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
You know, when times are hard or when, you know, the grind is on, a little humor interjected could just lift everybody's spirits. But it also is sort of a way of, you know, avoiding the hard things
Yeah. Yeah.
at times, or just getting over through the hard things.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, I'm probably a little mix of all those things, and you know, and I laugh at myself, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
Yeah. What's a piece of advice you would like to give to a younger generation? And maybe a younger Asian generation too, specifically.
Well, you know what? I think it's really not necessarily about the destination. Everybody has a destination in mind. It's the journey that you take to get there. Remember the stop and smell the roses? It's super important to do that, but it's also important just to, like, take a moment and be still and think about how far you've come, even though you may not be, you know, you might be have started here and now you're here and your real goal is to get here. But if you can't go from here to here. You have to have little hops and skips along the way.
Yeah.
And you have wins and you have losses along the way, or you, like, everybody falters. But you know what? You just pick yourself up and keep on going, right? I think you just have to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it goes back to that you can choose to be the survivor or you can be the victim,
Right.
right? And bad things happen to everybody. Unfortunate things happen to everybody. Nobody is exempt from that. Everybody is touched by that. And it's what and how you choose to deal with that, and how you choose to pick yourself up, how quickly, you know, how smoothly, however, with help or without help. The goal is to get back up and to keep on going.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. And for more information about the Magical Unicorn Project, please visit my website at magicalunicornproject.com. Thank you.